Welcome to another episode of Rdm Podcast. This is your host, Al. Hope you've had an amazing week, amazing day, and ultimately found the gifts or found the ways through some of the hardships that we've all encountered in 2020. And if you haven't, mate, this is the greatest episode you'll ever hear, because what we're talking about today is ownership and not how to find it. We've all got it in us, and we all have the ability to express it. It's how to remember and re-engage. How do I remember and re-engage this? Not repress, not suppress, not hide, not be a victim. Look at what we can do, what we can control. And it's all well and true. In all the episodes, all the podcasts I do, it's all well and true to give you some food for thought and have some things to think about and whatnot. But I love it, the level of purpose that we have here in RDM, which is, okay, how do we actually back it up with something that is A, tangible, so we can take actions with it, and B, sustainable? Like, I'm going to remember this. This is going to hold value for me. It's not, hey, mate, we've all got 24 hours in a day. What's your excuse? It's, hey, when you sleep 7 hours and 20 minutes a day, you've got 1,000 minutes left. What's holding you back? What can you do? What's possible? Instead of saying, oh, the years go fast and life's a flash in the pan, go, well, you know what? We've got 700,000 hours alive if we live to be 82. And if we're looking at obviously a third of that being sleep, we've got 500,000 hours awake. That's it. That's your life. Done. 500,000 minutes, 500,000 hours. So it seems like a lot, but it doesn't, because if you're at the midway point, or if you're entering the second half, and that's if you live to be 82, and that's not taking into account the quality, you're looking at a couple of 100,000 hours left. Gets you thinking, doesn't it? But the greatest way we can look at in this episode, and most things in life, exploring ourselves and the stagnant states we can find ourselves in, the stubborn motions of this is how it is, this is how it has to be, this is life, and forming up these four walls that are concrete, off a concrete foundation. This is how life is. Too often we do that without looking at the stories and the bullshit that's built that, to look at the bricks and mortar and go, well, actually, no, it doesn't have to be that way. And then a lot of the times, especially when we're talking about ownership, we'll seek to gain ownership or control or influence, yes, but a high level of ownership and control over those things external. So things outside of us, away from ourselves, that we actually don't really have that level of control over. Like, of course, I can control my 4-year-old daughter if I wanted to, but is it really going to return? Is it really going to have a great return as she gets older? Like, I don't own her. I'm responsible for her. She's part of my blood, but ultimately I am simply a part of her journey, just like she's a part of mine. So when we're looking at the obsession that can come with really not having that juggling or that balancing act inside of our own lives, because we're trying to control everything outside of us instead of looking first and foremost inside of us, what we lack is the ability and the depth to go, well, how do I actually do it? And how do I do it at the best possible level in controlling me and looking after me? Because I'm so busy on focusing on things outside of me and trying to control other things, I actually don't even look at controlling myself first. And that's what this is about. Every human being desires significance, but they ultimately desire certainty. And the greatest way you have certainty and significance in your life is through control. Hard part is people look at controlling things that they should never try to control. Influence, yes. I can influence my family. I can influence my daughter. I can influence the dads inside of RDM. I'm only one man. I'm accountable to RDM. They are a bunch of legends, and I'm accountable to them. I have to answer them. But being at the top, and not the top as me being better than them, but being the leader who steers the ship with the other coaches of the direction of what we go, the environment that we expose ourselves to, the content that we release and engage with the other fathers. Yes, I do have a high level of influence with these fathers, not over them, with them. So when we're looking at this, we're going, well, hang on. I'm trying to control things that actually I can't, which means, guess what? I'm spending time, energy, and focus on things. Do they concern me? Maybe, maybe not. But do they engulf my entire life? Probably not. Oh, that's not true, Al. My children are everything, my entire world. Yes, that's right. You've created that. I'm not saying it's a fabrication. This is your life. But what I'm also saying is, if you've chosen that and made your bed and made peace with that being the fact that's your life, guess what? There are elements in that you do not control. Your children will grow up, they'll move out of home. You could have fights, you could have issues, you could have challenges, there could be hardships, and all of a sudden, you're left as a shell of a man who doesn't even know who he is. Pretty tough, isn't it, when that happens and when that hits home? And it's not that I've experienced it personally. It's the 1,000+ fathers that I've worked with now, where we see that common thread, that common pattern and theme of going, well, fuck, Al, I don't even know who I am, mate. Like, I don't know. I put food on the table, I provide for the family, I do X, Y, and Z, and I'm doing all these different things. And I actually haven't even stopped to look at myself. And this is what happens, mate. It's why marriages break down. Not the sole reason, but it's a large portion why it breaks down. All of a sudden you leave school, whether it's a high school sweetheart or someone you've met, you have your kids, and then 20 years passes. You don't even know who's in bed next to you. You don't even know who's looking in the mirror at that man back at himself to go, shit, where's that gone? I'm in my mid-40s now, my late 40s, my early 50s. And I've just spent the last 20, 25 years working, making money, spending a large portion of that on my children, my family. And where's my life going? What's going on? Like, I don't know. Like, when I think about midlife crises and those sorts of things, I'm not sure if that's a fixated point. It's something that we've created because, numbers are something we've created. Oh, you hit 40, you're halfway if you live to be 80. You're 45, halfway if you live to be 90. But ultimately, I think it comes about from a self-declaration of, whoa, where am I? Where am I going? Because all these moving parts, you've hinged your purpose, your life on so heavily in things that you don't own and things that you actually don't control, but you've tried in an obsessive state, are leaving the nest. They're flying away. They're changing. They're morphing. Life is change. It's happening. It happens all around us. Does that mean it's going to be easy because I'm aware of it when, and I've got all this knowledge and understanding and this temperament right now, 35 years of age? Does it mean I'll be the same and it'll be super easy when my kids move out of home? Of course not. We're all going to go through it, man. Like, we will all go through it. No one's different. But will I let that influence me in a level that leaves a shell of a man looking back and going, I don't even know who I am, and that was what defined me? No. See, this is the funny part. It's almost the dichotomy of RDM, like real dad movement, where real, yes, no bullshit. What you see is what you get. We have that strength and then transparency and owning our truths, being honest. And, well, it's part of our 7 values, honesty, teamwork, inspiration, trust, leadership, excellence, respect. Like, these are very important when it's looking inside of you as a man. But the common ground we have, the way that we come together, is by understanding the greatest hat, the hardest and biggest hat that we wear in our life, which is being a father. And we've all got that together. And movement. Some people think it's fitness, health, moving the body. Everything's always moving. But this isn't a program. This isn't a challenge. This is a movement, which means it's continuous, which means it keeps going, which means this is for life. What you instill and put in place as you continually evolve, change, and adapt with the landscape of yourself, with the landscape of the environment, is life. It's your life. So when we look at this, it can be very easy to be pulled into that, I'm a dad. And yes, you are, but you don't identify yourself as a human being that way. You weren't always a father, and you won't always be a father of a 3-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old. It changes, constantly changes. And my father's a father of 4 grown men now, quite different to 4 children. It changes. There's always change. So when we look at exploring ownership, and this is where we can come fully around to this, which is why I had to set the framework on this episode, in understanding that everything outside of you do not control. Mate, please understand that. You don't control it. You might have influence. Yes. You might have a high level of influence. Yes. You might have power, which can lead to a level of not corruption, but really dominance, skewing the wrong way, not having that balance in life, and ultimately manipulation, deceit. Whether it's your children, whether it's your worker, your colleagues, your friends, your family, your missus, you may have that. Like for me, like being a large man, my wife's just had our 3rd baby. Of course I can overpower everyone inside of my house, but what's the benefit of it? What's the purpose? What am I trying to achieve? And even if I held that for the next 50 years of my life, is it really out of a light of love and leadership the right way, and legacy, and helping them flourish and grow, helping my wife grow into who she continues to become, my children into who they continue to become? Of course not. My footprint's already in my children. They've already got it. Like the mannerisms, what they do, their behavioral patterns, everything. Without me even speaking a word, they adopt it immediately. It's hilarious. It's quite funny. They're going to be good smart asses when they're older, that's for sure. They already are, and fast and witty. It's great. But what we need to establish, mate, is really understanding the value of ownership. And this is where it all connects. I take ownership over the fact that I can't control my children, and I don't control their life, who they are, what they do, including my wife, including RDM. I take ownership over that. This is where it's really interesting. I take ownership over what I can do, my actions. I take ownership over my perceptions. Like, the greatest way that you can begin to tap into that again. If it's been a long time, if you've just gone in the rut, or if you feel like you've just been on autopilot again and again, it's been 3 years, 8 years, 18 years, is to ask questions and attach verbs to those. It's not about statements. Verb is a word that describes an action and state, not a noun. We don't want to just make statements. I can't do it, Al. It's too hard. It's not possible. The courts are fucked. My children don't love me. My ex is a dragon. Like, you'd be surprised at how often I get this. And that's not to take away the hardship. We've got a whole mix of dads. Some are single, some are married, some are on their third marriages inside of RDM. And I'm not taking away the injustices of the legal system. Don't take me wrong. There's a lot of bullshit out there. That's not my field of expertise in law and government and changing laws across the country for fathers to get a better run. There are people way more qualified for me, and I'm sure that is going to, and it takes time, I'm sure that's going to slowly turn. I'm sure the tides will turn over a period of time. Does that mean that there's going to be some cannon fodder and some casualties? Maybe, if you adopt the life of being the victim, or if you look at being a victor and asking the question with a verb attached. Well, what can I do? What can I control? What choices do I have? What's possible? Where am I now and where am I going? See, this is the hard part. And I do get dads reaching out here and there, and sometimes it's some pretty deep, heavy stuff where they're talking about how I've just been absolutely destroyed through the court system. I'm like, yeah, okay, mate. Like, look, again, I don't understand that because personally I haven't gone through it. And I don't understand that because I'm not a lawyer. I'm not someone who's, highly experienced in that field. We've got dads who've been through the same side of RDM, but guess what? We focus on what they can control, what they can do, and their life has fucking flourished, man, which means guess what? It doesn't matter what bullshit, what lies the children get fed by the ex or the mother. Doesn't matter what the court does. Doesn't matter what the landscape of the environments of how people judge or perceive them because apparently it's a broken home, all this sort of other bullshit that exists out there. We create that stability and that framework inside the man. Guess what? His children see, they know, it's energy, they feel it, and it's amazing. Because sooner or later, and even if you're going through a tough run, like some of your dads just on this point at the moment where, you might have to wait till your children are 16 or 18 till they have more rights or responsibilities where they can actively go and see you and all that sort of stuff. If you stay true to yourself and continue to lead your life and grow and expand and control what you can control and lead by example and show yourself first the life that you can have out of love and leadership, not hate, bitterness and resentment and fear or fear of failure, they'll see it, man. They'll pick up on it. And guess what? They will come and find you. It's like a single bloke. Like I look at, not that I'm a relationship expert, but being a fat, overweight, obese boy when I was younger, oh man, girls didn't want to know about me. I was friend zoned hard, mate. Don't worry about that. I was in the friend zone. And it was a hard pattern. I had to try and change it on myself to think that I needed, female recognition. Look how big or strong Al is, or look at this from females and males to validate who I am. It's why I dived into elite sport and all of that. It took me a while to turn that around to go, well, I like challenging myself. I do it for me. And when we see that, what we see is ultimately a patterning of the decisions we make on validating what's outside of us to bring us around to then define who we are, instead of taking ownership over ourselves and what we can do and how we can move our life forward. So when we're looking at this, the whole law of attraction thing, getting back to my point about not being a relationship coach, but talking about this, I'm not saying it will be easy for me right now if I was single, but what I'm saying is living in your lane and owning your own truth and moving you forward will attract that natural, literally, that same wavelength type of person, vibration, frequency, whatever you want to call it. Like this is hard science. I'm not diving off into woo-woo land. This is some hard science, but you'll naturally attract that through circumstances, through opportunities, through different people, different settings, environments. Relationships will come into your life, and it's incredible. I'll put it to you in a very simple form. You go to a nightclub, get on the piss and take drugs all the time and stay up till 3 a.m. all the time. What do you think that will attract? Who do you think will engage in the exact same things, the exact same type of people? You might find a woman, but guess what she is? Guess what values she holds? Guess what things she engages in? Exactly the same thing. Now, I'm not saying if you love yoga, you need to go and do yoga classes to find some sort of yogi bear to be your missus. What I'm saying is when you take ownership over your life and the actions you take, the universe will balance out whatever discrepancies there have been of the older version of you, court systems, family issues, challenges, changes, divorce, separation, marriages, second, third, fourth marriages, all these different things that make up the life that is us, which is lots of messiness. We've all got mess. We've all got stuff. We've all got lists. It will find you on what you express and where you express and how you express who you choose to be. The end. So if you go through some tough stuff and you think you can control things, or you used to be able to control and influence them, but then you can't, it's taken away, and there's different factors that come into play, mate, stay true to you, focus on what you can control, and guess what? It will return. Will there be some time gone? Maybe, but will the quality be enhanced and enriched? Yes. Will you potentially lose out, again, on that point of being a single father, on your children between 11 and 18? Probably, but between 18 to 25, the next 7 years, can that flourish and blossom in a phenomenal way because of how you've held your shit together and controlled what you can control and invest in yourself? Mate, 100%. 100%. Your children will see. People will see. You will see. So when it comes to taking ownership, it's a fascinating thing. Don't try and control the things you can't control outside of you. Control inside of you. Use verbs when you're asking questions. That's the greatest way to remember and the greatest way to take ownership and regain it of yourself. Not ownership of others, ownership of yourself and the actions you take. Verbs and questions. Questions with verbs in them. Actions, states. What can I do? How can I change? How can I improve my circumstances? What's possible if I do X, Y, and Z? If I adopt A, B, C, what's the outcome? What's the alternative if I don't do this? What's the greatness that awaits when I do? What's plan B in place that's going to take away from my plan A to actually not go through fear of failure, but go for a love for greatness and going, yes, I've only got one shot. What's holding you back? What's holding me back from taking action? What am I afraid of? What will I lose? Like this is the big thing. Like, what have you got to lose, man? You know, there are so many states where we have emotions and feelings, but ultimately what we need to do is make sure we're connecting the dots in our experiences to go, are they a sensation with our, sensory perceptions, touch, taste, sight, smell, sound? Are they a sensation that I'm experiencing that I'm confusing and bundling up with a deep feeling, which is a belief system on you and how you value yourself? Or is it a true and genuine feeling and a belief system and how you value yourself? Because too often we let sensations, which are just external stimulus that's happening all the time, dictate our feelings and emotions and who we are. It's not the emotions that control and drive the human. It's the human, you, your spirit, that can control and drive the emotions. You've got to be very careful. It's like the yin and yang, the whole chicken and egg scenario. If you're not aware of it, you don't know where to start, which means you don't even know what you're doing when the wheel's already in motion. Taking ownership through asking quality questions of yourself, attaching verbs to that so it's something that's a state of motion, not just sitting back. How could this happen to me is not a very good question because you're looking at a state of action that's past driven. What we're looking at is being in a state of future pacing. All right, where am I now? Where am I going? What can I do? How can I just change and improve 1% every day? What's an area of my life that I know I can get better at? Am I having the right level of energy? Am I nourishing, moving my body the right way? Mate, there are so many different questions you can ask yourself. And when you start to explore them and answer them yourself or seek others to help you find the answers, you liberate yourself. You take ownership. You take responsibility. You then own the situation. You liberate yourself and you can start moving forward the right way. That's a very powerful thing. I want you to just take a moment here as we look to wrap up this episode and look at reflecting on both sides. This is important. I'm not about sugarcoating or burying your head in the sand, but look at both sides. Just say, where do I feel like I've just attracted the wrong type of experiences that at a deeper level I never wanted through either my actions or lack of actions or the statements that I've been feeding myself that has built this foundation and built this big structure of bullshit that doesn't have to be true. There have been I actually don't have them in my life anymore, but there have been a few people in my life, not many, only a few, because I'm very optimistic and I'm always driven by action and being not just positive, that's a state, but optimism, that's a choice, that's a perspective, a way to see things. There have been a handful of people in my life where they're just always telling me what's gone wrong. This always happens to me. It's just my life. It's just my luck. It always happens. One of our members, we're going to get him on for a podcast soon, and he used to be that way. And guess what? He always found trouble. Like, this just always happens to me. I'm just unlucky. That's just life. Yeah, that's another thing that happens. That's another thing that happens. My father-in-law's a crack up. Like, he's had credit card fraud probably half a dozen times because he has a huge concern and worry about credit cards, payments, his wallet, where it is. And it's just so fascinating. Like, I lost when if you're watching this video, my wallet here, I've lost my wallet 4 times since my son was born. And it's not through carelessness. It's not that I leave my door unlocked and I'm just, carefree when it comes to security and safety to a degree, but it's just a state of free flowing and going, well, Roman was born. There's just so much going on. I just lost my wallet 4 times in 2 weeks. One time I was on the road and some bloke, Nigel, just legend, called me up, found me through RDM, and then just brought it around to my house. So I gave him some free protein as a thank you for his good Samaritan work. And another time was left at some sort of, I think, a medical center. We were getting a checkup. Another time was literally on the road right where I parked out the front of my house. Another time was actually underneath my seat. So I hadn't technically lost it. I just couldn't find it. Fascinating. And yes, it's a pain in the ass. We've all got our cards and I've got to get them replaced and fixed and all that sort of stuff. But just that sort of free-flowing, carefree attitude. Like there are times when I've got my shoes out the front. I mean, they're not $5,000 shoes, $150 shoes, but I'm like, man, if someone steals my shoes, they've obviously got bigger problems than I do and they deserve them. It really sounds ignorant, but I'm telling you, mate, that is generally, to a degree, a way that I live. Like if someone does wrong on me or tries to manipulate me or does something, or even, not that it's happened very often, someone would try and scam me out of the supplements. Oh, this happened or that happened, or, the lid was off and it was half empty, or they get those sorts of things. Like, man, like if that's your greatest issue or worry, concern in your life, then you can have that. You need that. I'll give you a refund. Have this, have that. It's okay. I'm not going to absorb that and take that petty stuff into my life. I can't. It doesn't exist in my world. And this is the level or the air of energy that you can express when you take ownership over your own life, which for me, as we wrap this up, isn't just in the actions you take. It isn't just in the questions you ask. It's what they mean. And this is where it comes full circle, man. The reason why a lot of you might be in a state of victimhood or in a state of being defeated or feeling helpless or feeling, a lethargic, alone, down and out, like it can be zapping on your mental energy, mate. It really can. Is because all of those things spearhead directly back towards your perception. I've said this saying for many years and I'll say it again. Your perception creates reality. Perception creates reality. You've got a drug addict who's taking hallucinogens and he sees a little green dragon on his shoulder flying around. That is literally his reality at that period of time. It's probably not ours, but that's his. Misperceptions, I'm not sure if they actually exist. It's quite a funny term because that's off a value system of really what you believe and what your opinion is should or shouldn't be how something's seen. It's very muddy waters, so I don't use that term misperception. You have your perceptions, I have mine, but understand they do create your reality because there's always going to be something outside of you that you can't control. What you can control, mate, is how you choose to see it and then the actions you take moving forward. Nelson Mandela, perfect example. What was it, like 20 or 25 years? Some crazy amount. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and do all the mainstream, buzzwizards and motivational things that they just regurgitate all the time and all these heroes. It's amazing what he went through. He was preparing himself to leave. He shifted his perspective around and he was never a prisoner. He was just biding his time and waiting until justice was served and he was released. Now, again, I don't know the full story and how it all unfolded and all that and all the moving parts, but the reality is he could not control something that appears to be a pretty large injustice in his life, but he controlled how he chose to see it and his perceptions. That saved him. That saved him from going mad. How do you think he'd go spend a couple of decades? There's probably a lot of people out there with certain areas and issues where, not jail, I mean, but where they feel like they've been trapped or they've been stuck or things have happened for so long. But the thing that's got them through has just always been that deep underlying level of faith and hope, which comes from a perception of being optimistic and saying, there is something that I can do. I can get through this. It is possible. I can do it. Fast forward that to the day-to-day living, to the 1% in improving our life and moving forward every single day without getting deep and heavy down there. It's a simple case of asking you questions that initiate a change in thought, which is already action, a change in perception, which is an action, and a change in real reality action. The reality on the inside, in your head, in your heart, and the reality out there in the real world. Constructing what you need to do, building that internally, and expressing that externally. You do that, man. You take ownership over your life. Doesn't matter whether it's the ex, whether it's your own children. I get my daughter now telling me to go away. She's not even 2 years old. She pushes me and says, go away, daddy. Sometimes she laughs. Sometimes she's serious. Like, man, I can't take that shit to heart. I've got two daughters that are going to be teenage girls going through hormonal issues later in life. And I feel sorry for my son, number 3. He's got some challenges ahead, that's for sure. But there are going to be so many moving parts that A, I may not understand. B, I may not need to. But C, are going to challenge me to reach out and look at controlling things I can't control if I don't invest my time, energy, and focus on what I can control, which is you on the inside. It's a powerful thing, man. Whether you're feeling down and out, doesn't matter how hard it gets, you have that comeback power. We all do. None of us are different from each other. It is possible. It always is. There's always a choice. There's always a way. The question is, Are you willing to ask that of yourself so you can find the way, so you can find the path? And are you prepared to try and do that alone? Because you shouldn't have to. No one should ever go it alone. I said that to one of our dads the other day who'd been, down and out for a little while. He's had a lot of injuries and he's an ex-rugby player. So he's gone from someone who's very high elite level sport to someone who feels like he's crippled because of all these injuries. That's very challenging. That's why primal power is important to us in RDM. Like your physical health affects your mental health 100%. 100%. Your physical health and expressing that, as well as the food you put in your body, are the two greatest drugs any human being could ever have. Hands down, that's it, the end. And I said to him, mate, there are some great discoveries and lessons that we can learn alone and we can make alone. But no one should ever stay there. No one. No one's walking and talking out of the womb. No championship team has ever won it off the back of one person, not even Michael Jordan. Tiger Woods, golf, he had a team. Tennis, they have a team. And even if they don't have a coach, they've got a team around them and their family, their supporters, their inner circle. No one goes it alone. Personal success, awesome. Self-made, bullshit. There is a difference. I hope this has added some value to your life today, mate. It's just giving you some food for thought, but not just that, ways you can initiate action. Like ask yourself, okay, what's the bullshit? What are the stories? What are the things that I have been feeding myself that actually I don't really want, but I'm feeding them to me, which means at a local level, they're going to become a global reality because I'm manifesting this. I'm planting the seed. It's going to become my life. So all of a sudden I look back, it's like I've got all these regrets. It's like, fuck, mate, the word regret shouldn't even exist. You have no right to have regret in your life because you've chosen that. If you have regret over something that's affected someone that you love, but you didn't have a full control over the circumstance or situation, that's not yours to have. I dropped my daughters off at daycare today. If someone came in and just took over the entire daycare and bloody exploded themselves and the entire building, that sort of shit, obviously we'd never wish that at all. But if that happened, I can't kick back and go, geez, I regret taking my kids to school today. I should have just homeschooled them. Like that's not mine to have. But when we're talking in sort of your personal life, you got to be careful of that, man. Have regrets over what? You chose it. You chose the actions. You chose the circumstances. You chose to not be aware of that. Tough. And I'm not saying that I'm the judge and the jury here, and you shouldn't have to be either. But it's just accepting your truth. So accept your truth right now and say, where am I? Where am I going? What's going on in my life? What have I done that's moved me down the path of not ideal circumstances? Cool. What are the non-negotiables I can create to find a pathway to improve my life, my circumstances, in my family, in myself, and in the value I add to the world, in service, my work, my career, my business? And when you get some clear identifiers on that, you can then start to move towards them and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Don't worry about home runs, 1%ers every single day. That's all you need. Little bit, little hit every day. That's all you need. It is all you need. I love the small games. They lead to the big victories, man. That's something. And with someone with the power and ability to sometimes hit some big home runs, it is the greatest way forward, because chances are, more often than not, you watching or listening to this right now, you will live to be 70, 80, 90 years of age. You do have the long game ahead of you, which means we need to make sure that we're recrafting and recreating who we are off the back of those 1% actions every single day to mold into the life that we want, not just for the destination, but for the experiences of the journey along the way. And the greatest way you can do that, mate, is through taking ownership. Jocko Willink says it best: extreme ownership. Discipline equals freedom. He's got some good stuff. You might not need to go down that line of being that hard, or David Goggins running 240 miles with probably the worst looking feet in the history of mankind. Like, good for them. That serves them a purpose in their life. They didn't start that way either, though. Don't ever forget that. 1% every day through taking ownership, which liberates yourself of the shackles of thinking you should control or have to control things you can't, which puts you in the spiral of ultimately depression and feeling like I'm just fucked. I'm a failure. There's nothing I can do. No. You're just looking at the wrong game, mate. You're just looking at the wrong lane. Focus on what you can do, take control over what you can, and initiate that investment inside of yourself, mentally and physically, and get out there, fucking win in life and claim what is yours. Claim that throne, claim that legacy that is yours. Your kingdom, your castle, you are the king. Take care. Have an amazing day, night, weekday, weekend, whenever you're listening to this. Don't forget, for the rest of October, hit me up. Primal Power 1 Nutrition. It's energy. Life is energy. Happy to give that to you for free. It's an amazing resource, audiobook, the video series, as well as the ebook itself. Dive on in, start taking action, take ownership, liberate yourself, and win.